Well, a very warm welcome back to the FEI European Championships here in Avanches, the Eventing Championships 35th edition. And we have had some brilliant dressage already this morning. The first edition of the Eventing European Championships that took place in 1953 in Great Britain at Badminton, but we're here the third time in Switzerland. It came here for the first time in 1954. And it is dressage day one. The scene very much set. Our three judges have seen some outstanding performances already this morning. We'll take you down the leaderboards in just a second. But for the three judges, they are led by Andrew Benny from New Zealand, the president of the ground jury, along with Christian Steiner at M, and then Christian Landot, the judge from Switzerland, at E. Three judges, 68 horses, 17 nations and 13 teams coming forwards for the 35th edition of the Eventing European Championships. The individual standing so far, Piggy March leads with Brookfield Innocent for Great Britain on 23.3, an outstanding performance from her. Also from Germany's Karjetan S, the grey, Christoph Wahler in second, 26.0. Janneke Bunzaiger with ACSI Schomtetelier for the Netherlands, third, 27.1. Great Britain's individual rider, Izzy Taylor, monkeying around, 27.9 in fourth. France's Jean-Louis Bigot and Utrello de Allage for France currently sits fifth on 29.5. Very close at the top in the individual standings with the Italian rider, Evelina Bertoli. Seashore Spring, 29.6, lying sixth, along with teammate Pietro Sandai, Rubis de Pré on 30.2. Lara de Lila Kakamaya, Ducati Daville in 8th. Cachel Daniels for Ireland. Leblanc Jewel, the lovely little mare, performed brilliantly in the whiteboards of the dressage. 31.1 sits 9th. And Anna Siemmer, FRH, Butz Avondale for Germany, 31.5 in 10th. Christopher Forsberg for Sweden, 11th. Marco Capai, Uta for Italy in 12th. On 31.8, and as we turn the page, Jordi Wilken, the first to go. Barry Spirit, the big grey for the Netherlands, sits 14th on 33.4. Ireland Sam Watson, Ballybolger Talisman in 15th, 33.5. Malin Jofersson with Golden Midnight. Marlin with a really good test, but a couple of mistakes were costly for Sweden, 34.1 in 17th. Katrin Kodem-Hazrati, 18th. Patrick Rueg in 19th, Esteban Benitez Valle, 20th, equal with Rebecca Gerold for Austria, and then Miroslav Trunda with Trunka Ruf for the Czech Republic sits in 22nd. Well, a long way to go. We've got 12 riders left to come here this afternoon, and the sun is shining, the weather conditions pretty much perfect out there. But I am going to be joined once again this afternoon. There's Christian Landot at E for Switzerland. I'm going to be joined once again by a lady that's no stranger to Europeans. She holds 10 European medals, 5 of them gold, also 4 of them silver, 1 bronze, former world champion, and a team silver medalist from the Los Angeles Olympic Games. Lucinda Green. Lucinda, welcome. These are the highlights we saw this morning.
Well, thank you for such a lovely welcome, Spencer. And I really have enjoyed this morning. We've seen some really interesting tests, quite a lot of them much of a muchness, and then 1 or 2 pretty getting on for being outstanding.
Yeah, 68 of Europe's finest horses and riders, and we have seen some really polished performances. Izzy Taylor monkeying around, sits 4th, and he was a little bit cheeky in the arena, but this lady here, Piggy March and Brookfield Innocent, pulled out all the stops. A really calm test, some brilliant parts of her performance, and they are so far in the lead. 17 nations represented, 13 teams, and of the 12 left to go, Gwendolen Fer, Romantic Love for France will be first out. Andreas Dibowski, FRH Corrida for Germany. And then we go to Spain, Austria in the final rotation of team riders. Nicola Wilson, JL Dublin for Great Britain there. Beat Danner, London Blue for Switzerland. Joseph Murphy, Caesar V for Ireland. Luc Chateau, Troubadour Camfo for France. Sophia Schoberg, Margarita Kozaka, and then Julia Schmitz will be the final rider down the centre line on day one. We start again tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Make sure you join us. If you've missed any of the action, then make sure you go back onto the social media platforms or through the YouTube channels to watch again some brilliant dressage. The 35th edition of the Eventing European Championships. The first to go after the break, a lady no stranger to top-class competition, Gwendolen Fer, 35 years of age, representing France, and she rides the Selle Francais 16-year-old by l'Arc de Triomphe, Romantic Love. And these two, they've seen some top-class competition. 5 stars under their belts. They've been at European Championships before. And a horse that can really perform in the dressage. And we've seen some crackers already, Lucinda, haven't we?
We have, and this was a really interesting entry by this horse because it came so boldly down the centre line and then fairly haired up the long side in shoulder in, and is a little bit settling now down into a very active forward rhythm, but almost looks in a little bit of a hurry. But as I said earlier, I think that they've watched, the riders have watched, and the judges are looking for particularly go-y forward performances. And you do try as a rider to try and gauge what it is the judges are particularly looking for. It's not always the same thing in an overall impression. Without having the sort of elegance of movement, this horse has got a real activity, but he just doesn't have quite the same cadence as some of the horses with the slightly more prolonged stride, shall we say. And that strike off, that transition down to walk, which has been so good for so many, just had a tiny jerk in it, which is not surprising because this horse is getting a wiggle on. And I would think across country he's very fast. Or is this a she?
No, you're right.
You've got the right
is,
sex this time. Excellent.
Well, this horse, they've been so good together, and watching him over the years, he's been at 4-star. He's had a very good win. He won at Bretagna de Vivaro in Italy, the back end of 2019. A horse that she's been aiming at 5-star for quite a few years now. With that in mind, and here at the European Championships, France have already had a very good test, and she's currently trending around the 26.2 mark, just behind Christophe Waller. And the first rider we saw for France, Jean-Loup Bigot, he was one of the first to go, 29.5, sits 5th. And these second-line riders are really important in teams because, of course, riders 3 and 4 come tomorrow in that drop score. You want 2 good performances to lie well overnight to get the confidence levels up and feel really good and bold going into tomorrow.
Really interested me what a completely natural flying change this horse has. You had to blink twice to see that he was on the other leg. And some horses just have it. And this horse, I bet, is a very fast horse across the country. And quite often those horses change like that, incredibly easy.
Very nice.
If in Spencer's terminology, it may not be expressive enough, but
No,
for me it was great.
It was. Yeah, I think. Do you know, we've said before, if you're just joining us this morning, we said there's a very fine line between expression and explosion. And if you ask more of this horse, we're not sat up there. And of course, unless you're sitting in the saddle, you don't know just how much these horses are on the edge. And I thought she rode those beautifully.
And that extended trot beautifully too. It's a really lovely test, this. It's probably not got quite the winning ingredient, whatever the heck that is, but it's a very good test.
Yeah, very solid performance from the first to go after the lunch break. Gwendolen Fer for France with Romantic Love. A combination that have been going really well. Their dressage scores at 4-star level, they were in a Radapin. They finished 4th in the 4-star short with a dressage of 26.3. She's trending around that same mark at the moment. So it's a pretty good indication of where she is with her training, what this horse is capable of, and what she's capable of more than anything. She's a very good rider in the arena, but she's very good cross-country too.
Of course, they won the 5-star in Pau last October, burnt around that course, and it was a flat course, and this Avanche course is also flat. So look out, everybody. If her mark is good here, she'll be able to carry that on with a bit of luck tomorrow.
Well, there it is, 26.5 goes third, 152.5 at E, 157.5 at C, 153 at M, 26.5 goes into third by only 0.5 behind Christoph Waller, Karjatan S, who currently sits second for Germany. It is Great Britain 1, Germany 2, France 3 now, and the Netherlands in 4. But also looking down that leaderboard, the rider in the team, it is the French team member Jean-Luc Bigot with Ultrello de Arlage sits fifth, third and fifth for the French.
So there's some lovely movements coming on our screen slow-mo here. Your 3 tracks of shoulder in that Spencer's trying to teach me about. Lovely half pass that I sort of think I understand a bit better, a half pass. Shoulder in is quite a difficult movement to ride. That's why I joke about not understanding it. It's very easy to get it just the wrong way, and therefore it's not doing the good to the horse's physical side that it's meant to be. And this was absolutely lovely, this strike off. Fraction early.
Good.
And just a nice, open, easy strike off. And the beautiful extension, we probably won't see the flying changes because honestly you missed them because they were so smooth.
I love when you're in a test, when you're in a competition like this, it is the European Championships. It's not just your run-of-the-mill national class down the road. And when you're doing a transition, it says from marker to marker, extended canter, it's a bullet out of a gun. You've got to go for those marks. You can't sit on the happy 6 or the happy 7. You've got to give it a go. And she really rode for every mark, I felt.
Yeah.
Well, next to go is a man that was very frustrated in Tokyo. It is Andreas Dibowski. Andreas with FRH Corrida, the horse that travelled all the way to Japan, never got the chance to run, and he is here at the European Championships. That Tokyo would have been his 4th Olympic Games, should he have ridden. He rode in Sydney in 2000, Athens in 2004, FRH Little Lemon, and then Little Leon, Butz Leon, he rode in the Tokyo and the Beijing Games back in 2008. He's a very, very good man. He's been on the gold medal winning team. He was on the gold medal winning team at the European Championships in Lemülen with this horse. And also he has been a 2-time former, 3 in total team golds. Andreas Dibowski from the Dibowski dynasty. He rides this horse today, FRH Corrida, and a stunning, stunning horse. You can already see the presence of this 12-year-old mare. He's 55 years of age now, very experienced and very, very good in the dressage. Hanoverian bred by Contendro the first, the 12-year-old mare, FRH Corrida.
It's interesting to watch this test.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the number of horses that have gone down that centre line, there's a marquee at the end that they've all sort of picked their heads up and had a little look around telescopically.
Checked it out, yeah. Well, this is a lovely shoulder in, as seen profile on in real life. Very active, very level. Again, another rider really attacking the test, right on the edge of hurrying, but not. I would imagine you have to be incredibly tactful riding this horse. Just watching her on the outside before she came in, she's got her limit, I felt, to how much she would give, and I think she'll give an awful lot if she's asked, and probably not much if she's told. But Andreas Dibowski is a long-term talented rider in all spheres of eventing. And that's another lovely half pass. He's keeping on the right side of this mare. And a pretty jolly lovely transition to walk too. Maybe the head just came a little fraction behind the vertical instead of stretching out to walk, but already starting to stretch out for the extension. And you wouldn't know if this one is a bit electric. She looked like she could be, but he's still able to offer her the rein, trusts her to just take her head and neck out.
She could
Striding.
just lengthen the stride, couldn't she, in this extension, in the extended walk?
Say that again.
She could extend her stride.
Yes, I was
more-
just thinking
yeah,
the legs
couple
aren't
more
quite
grounds.
stretching out as
Yeah.
much as the head and neck, just to put it in the sort of language I understand. And now gathering her up, and will he do anything about shortening the reins, or will he not risk it until she's struck off to canter? Let's watch. See if she does Spencer's special. I think she's going to, or he is going to, Dibowski, yes, and now he'll. It's a very good tip, that, isn't it, really? You just don't shorten them before you've hit the canter, otherwise they start jiggle jogging.
The nice thing is, in that movement, a super change.
I understood that change as being really lovely too.
But the nice thing is that when you ride that movement, you're able to bring the rein back with your body and not shorten the rein. So
Yes, your
shorten
body can get further away from the
Exactly.
horse's head. It's a good description. This was a lovely half pass, and this extension is also super. Dibbo is really bringing out what I didn't see when she was going around the arena at the beginning. I thought this looks like it could be a little bit dicey, but she's really settling into the work, and he's clearly asking her just the right amount. And wasn't that super, because she could have done that a stride or two earlier, but he didn't ask her. She waited until he asked her and gave it immediately, which was lovely to see. Nice and straight down those last few strides towards the chief judge, Oxy.
That's been very interesting to watch as well, the transition from the canter to the trot. It's a very simple one, but very underestimated. It's a simple transition, but it's one that is very easy, but not done.
Not always done very well,
yeah.
but this was a lovely last movement
Stunning.
too. She's just beginning to come up a bit as she comes down that centre line, almost like she's, maybe she's pleased it's finished, but just like she's getting a little bit more energy coming in when you don't really want it. But it was a very nice finish.
8-8-9. 9 from the judge at M, from Christian Steiner from Austria. And certainly Andreas Dibowski, he is appreciating the crowd, limited though it may be today, and delighted with this mare. We've seen an incredible amount of mares today.
Quite
Would you
extraordinary.
agree?
I have never seen so many mares. In Tokyo, it was roughly half geldings, and the other half was divided between mares and stallions. But this was going to be way more than half mares so far. We'll do a sex count up later.
We will do a sex count up later.
Because it is interesting. Mares have to be ridden quite often very differently. They're entire, as opposed to a gelding isn't. And therefore, a certain amount of a gelding's personality gets chopped off.
25.6
Oh,
goes into
that's
second place,
fantastic.
152.5, 158.5, and 157.5. 25.6 goes just behind, by 2.3 marks behind Piggy March and Brookfield Innocent for Great Britain. It is Great Britain 1, Germany 2, Germany individual rider 3, Christoph Waller, Kajetan S on 26.0. So it's certainly hotting up here this afternoon in this magnificent arena, bathed in glorious sunshine. We've got the mountains all around us, the Swiss mountains, and it's sky blue skies, and we're just loving all of the action as it unfolds.
It's interesting, Spencer, that first shoulder in we saw, she was a little bit greener in that one, and then she settled in so beautifully and got better and better and more secure during the test. And this was the only one that we both felt the walk could have been a bit more long, but I think she probably doesn't do a longer walk. It's probably the nature of the way her legs are tied to her body.
It's really interesting. I was talking to Dressage Supremo, Patrick Kittel, out in Aachen just a few days ago, and he was on a very new horse, and the relationship, he explained it, and I thought, do you know, that's Grace, the way that he explained it. He said, it's like we were dating, and now we're in a relationship.
That's a beautiful way of explaining it. I love that. And Dibbo and this mare are definitely well married.
Absolutely. Well, from Germany, we go to the last team rider on day one of the two-line riders, and it's now for Spain, Duke HSM and Antonio Cayudo Caro in his very, very first European Championships, and he is riding the 10-year-old gelding, and these two made the trip across to the UK, to Blenheim in 2019, didn't go quite to plan with them, but a very good combination that have been scoring pretty well in the dressage, and on their day earlier on in the year scored sub 30 in Arville. Had quite a few time faults on the cross country, but certainly along with his teammates, the first line rider for Spain that went earlier on today. As he comes down the centre line, Antonio Calledo Caro, 41 years old, with the 10-year-old gelding by Riverdance, Duke HSM.
Let's keep an eye on what looks like a grey coloured tongue coming out of the left-hand side of the mouth on the way down the centre line. It might not have been, it might have been something quite different I was seeing, but tongues aren't usually grey. They're pink. It's a good angle, it's shoulder in, and another one that's really attacking the test. And on this all-weather surface, you can do that. It's not quite so easy sometimes on grass. Horses don't feel quite so confident on grass, and you sometimes have to ride a little bit differently. But on a surface like this, you know you're not going to slip over or slip up. And another halt that just happened, you know, you're trying to whisper to your horse what you want, and then suddenly it's as if you shouted, and they bang into a halt, and just the last thing you wanted. But it's happened to quite a lot of them, hasn't it? And that just is a little portrayal of the tension that exists when you're trying to put a test together at a high level. It matters when you're doing your test on your young horse at home in a national competition. It doesn't matter so much. This matters.
Well, teammate that went earlier on today, Esteban Benitez Valle, sitting on 36.4, just outside the top 20.
Nice looking horse, and it's not just because it's grey. Grey is a good start-up because they always look rather glamorous when they're grey, but it's also a beautifully conformed, beautifully put together horse. And you've seen several times on the outside of the arena before he came in, the rider was lifting his hands and saying, don't get your head too low. And just a little bit there, you can see him doing it. Come on, get your head out. It's quite difficult because when you touch the mouth, then they can often duck their head in, which is exactly what you're trying to create the opposite of. We'd probably be better off if we did our dressage in a rope head collar, actually. They'd probably carry themselves better. Lovely strike off, well done. Now let's see how we come across for this change. Well, very good preparation, and the front leg went just a split second before the hind leg. And that's the best way I can describe it to those of you having trouble seeing the levelness of the change, as I have been.
I think that was very clear.
It was a good one to see.
Yeah,
wasn't
very
it?
good
And
preparation.
now off he
as you
goes
said.
for a gallop. I love it. Leaning well back and firing the horse off, but now we're no sooner done than have to stop it and come back to the small canter again. Well done. The double bridle can be hugely helpful to some horses. Let's see this change. That was spot on. I'm terrified that when I say that Spencer's going to nod his head and say, no, it wasn't. But I luckily got the thumbs up then. But yes, double bridles. I remember Charisma, who won 2 gold medals with Mark Todd in Seoul and Los Angeles. He always went in a double bridle. He loved the 2 bits, and lots of horses do love 2 bits. And cracking on. Whoa, see the hands going up there, saying, come on, get that. I love it. There's no inhibitions there about keeping your hands low and still. Good on him. And actually a very nice turn up the centre line, well done. The horse has got a very settled temperament, it seems. He may explode now, but he seems to be very settled. Oh, how lovely, delighted. Delighted, quite right.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I mean, these riders, we've said before, they work so hard. The team behind them, the unsung heroes of the sport, the grooms, as well as the owners, the trainers, the vets, the farriers, everybody that doesn't really get a mention, the riders and the horses, they are at one in the arena, on the cross country and in the show jumping. But it's the whole team that makes it so special. And I can assure you that on the sidelines there's some very, very happy and emotional teammates and parts of the team, the grooms, that love these horses more than quite often life itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great moment. It's a real privilege to find yourself at this level, and as you so rightly say, it's courtesy of such a huge amount of people.
Well, a very good score there, 30.6, very nearly sub 30 again. He's been performing really well. Goes into 10th place, 144.5 from a judge at E, 146.5 from a judge at C, and 146.0 at M. Well, that is a very, very good score for the second rider for Spain.
Andrew Hoy, silver medalist from Australia, having a lot to do with his team now. He's over here as a team trainer, no doubt helping them at other times when he can spare some time to leave his entourage in England, which now consists of 2 small children too. But he's definitely planted some real quality in this horse. It's got a really good way of going. Sometimes somebody can come and just put some finishing touches on work that's been performed by others. And just that fresh pair of eyes sometimes can really help in the latter stages. And I love the way this Antonio just really cracks on with his extended canter, and a wonderful extrovert when he finishes his test. Look, great. Delighted.
Well, we move from Spain back to the rider representing Austria, Robert Mandl with Sacré-Cœur. Just watching him warming up around the arena. He came in and extended trot down the long sides. And it's a real test when you come in just to check that the gears are all working, the horses are listening to you, because it's not far from the warm-up area, but there's just a little bit of time that they can switch off and not be as with you as they were in the warm-up. And he seems to have got this horse back and listening to him again. First European Championship appearance for Robert, and he is a very talented rider. I've been watching him on the circuit, and with this horse, been watching them. They were out in Arville as well. Had a very good time there in the dressage, just outside 30, and also stepping up to 4-star level at the back end of 2020. Very excited entry down the centre line.
It was interesting because it wasn't actually any shadow there, but it was as if there was a shadow that he suddenly looked down at. He can't blame the cameras for that, 'cause nothing anywhere near him that looks like a different piece of equipment. So let's see how he does. Robert isn't one that I was involved with during my 7 years in Austria. He's come to the fore since then and doing a very nice shoulder in, another very active one. And the horse is probably not quite in the hand as softly and genuinely as he needs to be, although that looks much better going sideways there. Nicely changed at the bend. Let's see how the halt is. It's looking like a really good halt. It was a really soft. We've seen a lot of handbrake halts. That was a beautiful halt. And it's a pity that, I don't know, just maybe too much weight on the rider's part used there. The reinback just started off a bit jerkily. Hadn't quite got his hind legs off the ground to take the weight that was applied by the rider, maybe.
Nice angle in the shoulder in. It's very important when you come out of the half circle not to let them fall into the half pass. You've got to keep.
And he lost a little bit of his bend, didn't he?
Yeah, support them with the inside leg, the new inside leg that's already there.
It's getting a bit technical, Spencer. I'm not sure I can follow.
It's a bit like cross-country riding when you need to close the door.
That's better.
Okay.
Don't let him run out. Close the door.
Close
Thank
the
you.
door.
I can get that. So let's see how we're walking. This looks like a lovely walk. The one we mentioned earlier that just didn't quite have the walk naturally in his body. This one absolutely does. And lovely stretching, just about keeping outside the vertical, not getting inside on the border, but it's pretty good. And a nice slowing down, sensible temperament here, we think. When I say slowing down, I mean collecting up, and a good enough transition to canter, and straight away into the flying change. Let's see how naturally this horse takes it. Very naturally, and you would love that because that was full of expression, wasn't it? It was a lovely, powerful, up in the air, but forward change. Am I doing all right?
Yeah, you're getting
As
another
a pupil.
thumbs up.
Excellent. Right.
Bang.
Yes, it's sort of done. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's lowered his hind end and he's gone. Lovely ears.
I'm a great ear watcher.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It always fascinates me how wide is the brain and the eyes attached directly to a horse's ears. Ours don't. Well, that was all right. Maybe not quite as full of the big E word expression as the first one, but lovely. And half past there looks as if it could just come across a little bit more, but in real life it's looking quite good, actually. Again, it's not always easy to see on the cameras. It's no fault of the cameras, it's just the way you're looking at it. And off we go, extended trot. That's doing as well as he can do, I reckon, for his age, stage and type. 12 years old.
He's got a smile. I'm not surprised he's got a smile. He's been getting some 8s and...
Yeah, he's doing a really good job, isn't he? Well done, Austria. I'm proud of you again.
And a really good halt to finish. Brilliant tests, brilliant results. Really, really good. Robert Mandel with the stunning Sacré-Cœur. Could go right up the leaderboard. That will be sub 30. The Holt Salute, 7.5, 7.5, 8. And it's going to go right up the leaderboards.
What will be interesting, Spencer, for me, being the cross-country intriguer that I am, he's a heavier type of horse. I bet he jumps really well, but will he manage to gallop for 4 miles? That will be really interesting to see.
Yeah, will be very interesting. Well, the score is coming in for the Austrian, and it is a good one, 26.3.
Oh, look at
goes
that.
into 4th place, 155,
Fantastic.
152.5, 157. 26.3, slots just behind Christoph Waller into 4th place for Austria. An amazing test. I work on a theory that is a percentage risk factor. So if you've left no stone unturned, then your percentage risk factor is really low. You don't risk having a run out. You don't risk having a mistake in the dressage. But if it's not prepared and you don't close that door down, then that percentage risk factor suddenly increases.
So how are you suggesting you keep it low, that percentage?
By riding every movement, by closing those doors, not allowing those doors to be open, or the fact that you might have a run out, or you might lose the shoulder coming out of it.
Anticipating when the shoulder could be lost or the bend might happen.
Reacting all the time.
Same old story, isn't it?
Same old story, from the dressage to the jumping.
I always say that the best riders are the ones who react the quickest.
Yeah.
Quick reactions are key.
Well, a really good performance from the Austrian, Robert Mandel. First European Championships, and he lies 4th. What a super horse. And do you know what he would be? I think he would be one that you'd want at the dinner table. He looks like a really interesting chap, this horse.
That's rather a fun way of looking at it. I love that.
Well, next to go, and representing Russia, this is Albert Kalekov with Argolis Tokyo. We move down to the final few riders in the team. We've got one from Russia, then it's Great Britain, then Switzerland, then the final line riders, the individual riders for Ireland, for France, for Sweden, and for Poland as well. And this is our second Russian combination. Argolis Tokyo. Interesting walking around the arena and just allowing this horse, and sometimes we forget, although there's been an arena familiarization, sometimes we forget to react to the horses when we come in because we never know how they're going to feel. There are crowds here now. The bell has gone. He allowed this horse to walk and just take in a little bit more atmosphere.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? And the exact opposite to Piggy, who came in and just rode an extended trot down the inside of all the flowers that this one was allowed to look at. And every horse is different, and you have to know your horse well enough to know how to respond in order to help him with his settling down in this new area. Arena familiarization is one thing, but it's a very different story when you're here on your own. The crowds are here, and you are full of anticipation and nerves as a rider. Little bit what they would call shallow, that shoulder in, not just quite bringing the front end off the track enough. It's more what I think is called shoulder 4. I'm looking to the matriarch, the mother of all dressage knowledge here in Spencer, or father. And that's a half pass. It's perfectly adequate. It may be not over generous. But again, Russia, I say again, doesn't have the benefit of a load of trainers from all over Europe because they simply don't have a money pot. So they're doing it all from within, and there's plenty of very good riders in Russia. They have a lot
Go on.
dressage. Whoops, it's a little bit wobbly there. But
Yep.
that's where we have to sort of look on and not dwell on the fact that we wobbled in our rein back and it wouldn't have got a very good mark. You owe it to your horse to ride the next movements as well as you can. And as Spencer was saying, close the door to any losing of shoulders or bends or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And that's looking a very well positioned half pass. It seems to be a little bit easier to the right, but I may be wrong about that.
In his very first European Championships, Albert, and as you say, they don't get as much funding as a lot of nations, but they do. They keep coming. They, for me, have got better and better and better. Not only in the riding and the way that you look at these now in the dressage, but the horses also looking
Better
so
quality,
much.
aren't
Yeah.
I think there is funding. I don't quite know how they've got it, and nor does the Russian trainer that I spoke to. There is funding in the dressage to an extent, and I wonder if they've therefore been able to learn off those dressage riders that have had a bit more experience to European and other countries' ways of doing it, because it is a mishmash of everybody helping each other the world over, and that's how the standard goes up. And we see it again and again, one country helping another, and quite possibly on a salaried situation. But also there's a lot of help goes on, and a lovely change. A lot of help goes on for free because people don't want other people to have a bad time, for, say, on the cross-country course. They know that we all need knowledge in order to have a good round, a safe round. So most people are willing to share what they think and their experiences of cross-country particularly. It's very nice extended canter, very nice coming back to the collection to make and another good change. Did you catch the age of this horse? I missed it on the
No, I didn't.
lovely
actually.
half pass to the right there. Nice straightening. It's actually another horse that's warming to his task, isn't he? It's getting better and better. I long to know how he got the name Tokyo, whether he was destined for the games.
They've only stepped up to the 4-star level recently. This is one of their biggest competitions so far. Well, in fact, it is the biggest competition, being a European Championships, in their first European Championships.
And a very nice hold. He sat down in a very nice, sort of soft way. Sadly, didn't quite establish it, but there we are. It was a very good finish.
Yeah, super finish. And for me, watching his test and listening to you and seeing him get better, more confident as the test went on, and them learning about each other. And this is another great thing, is that these competitions, for a lot of horses and a lot of riders, they learn so much from every time they ride a test. And for a 13-year-old, first Europeans, they can only get better, and they'll learn a lot. They'll trust each other more and more and more, and they were doing that in the arena. The marks were coming down in the flying changes, although they were good, they were just a little bit quick. And we're always looking for the perfect, of course, and we're at a championships. We're not looking for okay. And that's where the difference between the 6.5 and 7 or the 8 and the 9. And, you know, as good as it was, lovely. I thought he rode super angles in his shoulder ins. His lateral work looked very good. The half passes in both the trot and the canter were very good. There was a lot to like. And 31.8, it says 16.
Excellent.
But let's not forget that it might be 16, but 31.8 is still right there. 23.3 is leading. It's just over 10 marks separating the top 16, and we've got 2 on the same score. The Russian and the Italian Marco Capai. He is there with Uta as well. Really good, exciting. Well, we go from the Russian team rider to Great Britain's Nicola Wilson. She's about to make her way in, but just still enjoying some fabulous slow motion moments of his test, and I think we're going to see a lot more of them. And, you know, at your first Europeans, the nerves are there, the pressure's there, people are back watching, people are watching at home. There's no getting away.
Nope. You're under the telescope when you come to this level, and everybody has an opinion, including us, Spencer.
Yep, including us. Not always right.
No, we're none of us always right. That's a great thing about horses. We think we know, but we never really know. There's so much we learn all the time.
Well, here comes Nicola Wilson. Nicola for Great Britain, riding JL Dublin. She, of course, is a former team silver medalist from the London Games back in 2012. She rode opposition Buzz then. Former team gold medalist, part of the team that won gold on the same horse in Kentucky back in 2010. She's been an individual medalist. She was an individual bronze medalist in Stregom with Bulana, part of the gold medal winning team that won there. She's won team silver, bronze and golds with opposition Buzz, and one too many Fontainebleau, Le Moulin back in 2011, and Blair Castle up in Scotland in the UK back in 2015. This horse is a stunner. JL Dublin coming into the arena, and they have been on flying form. This is a horse owned by the Lamberts and Mrs. Johnson by Diarado. You say something different, Diarado. Hirado?
Diarado, I say, but it doesn't mean I'm right. But yes, and then another horse, of course, was the horse that you saw in Aachen with Laura Collett.
Yep.
De Capo is also Diarado, and the horse that Jesse Campbell from New Zealand rode in Tokyo was a Diarado. So he's coming thick and fast, but what a lovely horse this is. Nicola
Wilson, 45 years old, with a smile.
I'd say years young, actually.
Years young. Well, she's younger than me. 10-year-old by Diarado, JL Dublin. And off the back of a very good win at Hartpury in the 4-star short with a dressage of 23.9. They also won a very good 4-star long at Bicton back in the spring. Very rarely out of the top 10 in their international career.
And Nicola, who's another one that, again, being fortunate enough to be a bit older, I've had so much fun watching these people come up.
You said she was young.
She is, but me, being fortunate enough to be a bit older, I've had so much fun watching these guys coming up, and I remember her so well at her first Burghley, and she had a terrific get up and go across country, but not much dressage knowledge, as you don't when you're younger, especially if you come from Great Britain, where it's not really specialised in young. But my goodness, how things have changed over the last 25 years.
Well, it was a good rein back. The first 2-3 steps in diagonal pairs, but steps 4 and 5 weren't.
Bit technical again for me. But a lovely, wouldn't you say, lovely overall rhythm, sort of energy there, but relaxed energy, would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
And lovely bend through the body.
We just see the 6.5, that came in that rein back for the reason that steps
because the
4 and 5.
last two things were not diagonal pairs. Thank you. Very nice transition to walk, and I guess this is going to be a cracker walk, just looking at that collected walk there. Nicola always a natural across the country, very much allows the horses to do what they need to do, and a great disciple of the wonderful Chris Bartle, who, as most of you who are into eventing would know, took the Germans from in 201 to 216 from 0 to heroes, and they won everything, and the Brits couldn't keep pace with them in quite the way they wanted to. And he's now moved from Germany to take the great Yogi Breisner's place as trainer for England, and Yogi made an enormous impact during his time with the British. Nicola lives close enough to Chris Bartle so she can receive instruction when he's there, but he's very often away helping the rest of the team. Lovely half pass to the right. Part owner Deirdre Johnson, wife of the very famous racehorse trainer in England, Mark, who's always loved eventing herself and has taken her interest into ownership. It's wonderful when the sports mix. There's so much to be learned from one sport to another. What a gorgeous change. Did you see that?
I did.
Really. And a nice flowing half pass.
Just looking down my list as well to try and remember, and I knew he had been on the gold medal winning team, Chris, back in 1997.
Did you see that? That was a stunning transition on that difficult corner from canter to trot and now into extended trot. Maybe the front end not out quite as much to be out to be the big marks, but pretty lovely. Very well ridden test and a beautifully performed test by JL Dublin.
Well, that, I think, has got to go into the lead for me. Nicola Wilson, JL Dublin. Piggy March leads Brookfield Innocence at the moment, 23.3. But Nicola leaving nothing to chance. She got 9s for her halts, final halt and salutes. And looking across to the board, it looks like she's possibly gone into first place. We'll get that confirmed. 23.3 is our current leader, but she looks delighted. If she does go into the lead, it means that Great Britain, for now, will go to the top of the leaderboard, because there are still one more German to go in this session of dressage. No, there isn't. Both the Germans have been. It means that Great Britain will lead going into the dressage tomorrow if Nicola can go into top spot. The score is coming in. Here it is, 20.9. Nicola Wilson goes into first place, 164.0 at M, 165.5 at C, and 169.0 from Christian Landolt at E. 20.9 goes into first place, means that Great Britain will lead the team competition going into tomorrow's dressage, with Piggy March, the second team member, going first earlier on this morning, 23.3, now second. Great Britain 1-2. Germany's Andreas Dibowski, FRH Corrida in third, 25.6.
It's such a wonderful look Nicola has in the dressage now. She's so in charge of how to do it and has this lovely harmony. Got an 18 out of 20 from one judge for harmony with this horse. Having to work quite hard at walk, you can see quite a lot of movement going on there to say, come on, stretch out your legs, stretch out your body. But what a beautifully executed test. She can be really, really proud of herself, because my word, has she come a long way in her, how many years has she been going? 25 years maybe. It's a long old journey, this eventing journey. 3 skills, and you need to be a master of all 3 now. In my day, you only had to be really reasonably able at the cross country, but now you have to be a master of all 3.
Well, a great performance from a great pair off that back of that very good win at Hartbury. Nicola Wilson, JL Dublin, 20.9 lead the way as we go down to the last team riser in this second rotation. It is Piet Danner, here he is. Piet Danner with London Blue. And these two, well, Piet himself in his very first, I'm still struggling to wonder why. It is his first European Championships, and at London Blue, pretty much the only horse he's got at top class international level now. Been around on the circuit for a number of years on the Swiss team. Finished 7th in the 4-star long at Montelibretti in Italy in May. These two been together since the very beginning, and a combination that know each other very well indeed. Switzerland's second line rider, and the first Swiss rider was Patrick Roeg, 50-50. He came earlier on. And the last rider for the teams here today. Great Britain lead 44.2, France second 56.0, Germany third 57.1, Italy in fourth 59.8, and the Netherlands in fifth 60.5. They're the teams standing so far, having a bit of an awkward ride around the arena.
I was just watching this, but we have a funny description in English called "spat the dummy," and I almost think this horse might have had a little revolt warming up, because he's having to be fragile would be the word, wouldn't he? He's having to be so as if he's made of very thin glass, and sometimes when they're like that, you can ride them through it by just wrapping your legs around and going forwards, and other times you're just threatened into doing what's having to happen now and just sitting it out.
Yeah, he's moving this horse from left to right down the rein just to try and maneuver him
and
and
get some sort of
softness
suppleness,
back.
not just in his body but in his brain
Yeah.
as well. And there was a moment in front of the judges' boxes, unfortunately, before he's even started the test, where he said forget it and revolted. So I think he's on a minefield here.
It's going to be an interesting test for sure.
I don't think there'll be much expression here. I think it's going to be the other explosion, possibly. You never know. He may settle to his
incredible
task.
though, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a much better centre line than I expected.
14-year-old by Londonderry. London Blue for
Swiss
Switzerland.
bred, yeah. Interesting. Interesting. If he can just keep this up, he'll produce a test. Oops, no, maybe he's going off again. I just thought the centre line really looked like it was promising, but now he's asking him to move off the straight line, i.e. shoulder in. The horse is saying, I'm just not going to do that. And you don't know why. Sometimes, like us, they put their backs out, just getting out of bed in the morning in the stable, and they're not comfortable doing sideways stuff. You just never know, and it'll often happen just when you really don't need it, like the eve of a European Championships. But something's been going on outside that is not satisfactory, and I feel terribly, terribly sorry for the pair of them.
This is not the start of the test that he would have wanted, and
it's
unfortunately,
it's not going to get any better.
when they drop the bit like he has done and they tense up under the saddle, it is like sitting on. Well, we've been sitting on a school bench, and it's just
look at that halt.
Yeah, just
and
getting through it
and
now.
he maintained it. Let's look for the good. Look at that. There's decent rein back steps there. So long as we're not going sideways, I think we're okay. But unfortunately, quite a lot of this test is sideways, and it's starting again now with the shoulder in the other way. And you never know what's happened. As I say, he could have got out of bed the wrong way, he could have bitten his lip and be sore inside his mouth. You just don't know.
Something's definitely gone on. These
Something's
two,
not right, exactly.
although dressage wouldn't be their strongest phase, this is not how this horse goes.
Like
no.
this, no. It must be devastating, because you know you can get a bit of a test out of this horse, but he can't really get a test at all now. And he's just got to sit it out, 7.5 minutes of sheer embarrassment. And we all feel for him. That's the only thing that he must understand, that everybody feels for him. We've all been in this position.
We have. Oh my goodness, we have.
A lovely transition from trot to walk. Happy horse now. Come on, give us a really lovely extended walk. Show us what you can do. Just wonder whether he's going to jog. No, this is looking promising, like the centre line at the beginning, looked really good. And he's taking the contact out, he's not avoiding it. Got a little bit of froth in his mouth, so it makes you feel he's probably comfortable enough in his mouth. Well done.
When you lose their brains, and you've got a horse that clearly, with a disposition like he has, and like you said, the expression we use in the UK, spat the dummy.
Spat the dummy, yes.
You know, when you lose their brains, sometimes it's so hard to get it back. And he's riding, I have to say, if there's a medal to be given, it should be for his absolute. Yeah, I mean, he twisted and turned, but he got it. Yeah, absolutely.
And brave to try,
if there's
really.
a medal for perseverance.
Incidentally, sideways in canter isn't as difficult as sideways in trot. But, you know, I agree with you, a medal for the rider simply because he's sticking it out as calmly and as tactfully as he can. And just eases him to a slightly faster canter, which is all anybody would dare do sitting on that. It's not quite an unexploded bomb, but it's an unexploded something. Well done. The horse, you can see in his eye, he's sort of threatening the rider, don't touch me and I'll keep going. Was that okay?
No, it was late behind,
Was
but
late
you know,
behind, was it?
in the grand scheme of things,
It was fine.
It was absolutely
Exactly.
fine.
And if another sideways in canter, looking much more comfortable than in trot.
Yeah, 3-3-4 for the
Well
flying
done.
change because it was late behind. But yeah, I mean, medal. What a great job he's done.
Yeah.
When you've got a horse that is as tense
No.
as this, to sit to it as well,
Exactly.
when you want to rise.
Yes, you want to rise, exactly. And he hasn't been able to conjure the extended trot out of him. I mean, this is a bit spitting the dummy now. He's just saying, naff off, I'm not going to trot. So you just have to give up at that point. Okay, we won't. And he's managed to get the trot back round the short end. And he'll be so relieved that this is finished. 7.5 miserable or 7 miserable minutes.
Good
Well done.
hold.
Lovely.
Yeah.
What
And he
can
gets
you
a
do?
pat. Yeah, I mean, what do you say?
You've got to smile.
Yeah,
There's
you
nothing
have.
else for it. If you don't smile, you burst into tears.
Mr.
And
Nicholson
there's
there
Andrew
with a
Nicholson in the
smile.
middle, yes.
I mean, he's been there. We've all been
We've all
there.
been there.
Everybody's been there, and we can feel his pain for sure. But my goodness me, he rode a brilliant test because that, as we know, Lucinda, and as a lot of you guys listening and watching will know, was not easy.
I feel if you likened it to canoeing or whatever in the Olympic Games, it's literally like falling out the canoe, isn't it? It's not
I think
good
it's
news
probably
when it
like
goes wrong
trying
like
to
that.
ride that canoe slalom with the boat full of water.
That's another very well described feeling. A sinking feeling.
Yeah. But he got the job done. He got
did.
in. He got out, and
he did the test.
He
I mean,
did the
it
test.
could have got so bad that the judges would have had to ring the bell
Yeah.
because he couldn't get any movement done. It never got to that stage.
I can tell you there might have been quite a few threes, but he got 8-8-8 for his final halt.
That's judges joining in our sympathy campaign,
yeah.
and rightly so too. Well done.
56.9. No surprise there that it does go to the bottom. We always know that there's going to be someone at the top, someone at the bottom, and it's going to be Dana with London Blue at the bottom of the pile at the moment. 56.9 goes into 29th place. Painful.
There's a certain sort of something about being the one at the very bottom rather than being the second bottom. There's a certain badge for that.
No pressure now. Can go and have a nice time on the cross country. I bet he'll
Let's
enjoy
hope,
that.
yes, we'll follow him with interest on the cross country. Let's hope he loves that more than the dressage.
Well, freshly back from his time in Aachen, it is Joseph Murphy, representing Ireland, a member of the Irish team from London 2012, from the World Equestrian Games in Normandy in 2014. He was just off the podium in Stregom in the team in 4th place back in 2017. And with Caesar the 5th, he comes down the centre line, 13 years old, this Oldenburg, bred by Casero. Finished 5th at Mill Street in the 4-star short. And these two, well, they have been running well. They've had some very good 4-star form.
Did you say that they both ran in Aachen, like Sam and his horse, or just
No,
Joseph?
just Joseph.
Just Joseph,
Yeah.
right. And Joseph is another rider that is such a pleasure to watch on the flat now, and I would never have said that a few years ago. Ian Woodhead, Tracy Robinson, they've helped enormously the Irish team become pretty hot at the first phase.
Joseph rode Calmaro. He was one of the fastest, if not the second fastest, round Aachen with just 3 seconds over the optimum time.
Oh my goodness, Joseph is
Look
a
at that
cracking
halt.
cross-country rider. I know, that's pretty spectacular, isn't it? And nearly the rainback was going to be great, and then he just ran a little bit. How many strides is it supposed to be? I forget.
5.
It is 5. Yes, we weren't quite there, were we? Nice angle of the shoulder in. Carries himself well around the circle, doesn't try and duck his head down, and moves across, not possibly with as much bend in the body as some, but very nicely across. Did a very good bit of riding there, because he sort of warned him about 2 or 3 strides off that he wasn't continuing trotting, and the horse just listened enough to come down into a lovely walk without jerking. Now, how is the lovely walk? Is it going to be an extender? The head and the neck's looking really good. The legs, if you like it, are a fraction hurried. Your over-track Spencer is there. You feel that he could just breathe a little more between each stride. As riders, we try to slow our bodies so it goes slower than the horse wants us to move our bodies. So you almost go out of sync with him, and that can slow him down without you having to put any pressure on his mouth. Just warning him that canter's coming. Very well warned, and the horse took the warning without going into some pace that you wouldn't want him to go into. He walked straight into canter, beautifully prepared by Joseph. I saw that, Spencer, a little bit late behind in the change.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited when I see it. A nice straight in those last 3 strides down to the judge at C. Now off he goes. Opening his frame out, maybe could open the neck out a little bit, the nose come out a little bit, but it's being a bit fussy. Nice coming back.
I think we're going to get the same thing again, and I'll explain why if it happens again. I'm just going to watch this flying change. Much better.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
You see, he heard whatever you were going to say.
Yeah.
He heard it.
So when he did the walk to canter, he, although picked up really nicely, he was a little bit slow behind in his kick off the ground.
Interesting.
So then his flying change was late behind. The extended canter opened out and engaged the hind leg more, so the second change was much better.
I'm not going to say that's too technical, because I think that is really fascinating, that how you build one movement to another.
Yeah.
No wonder you could ride dressage and I can't. And he's a plain enough trotter, a plain enough mover, but some really good parts to this test.
You can see the tail through his legs as well, so straight as a die coming down the centre line. Got a 9 and 2 7.5s. The 9 came from M, the judges at C and E 7.5. Not quite square, but very parallel. And it's not just the parallel line that gets you straight, but they've also got to be 4 square as well. We talk about 4 square when they're jumping off of 2 legs rather than 1.5 or 1, and not getting that front end level as well. Makes a huge difference from the dressage training as well. Caesar the 5th, Joseph Murphy, one of the last to go on this first day of dressage. We've got 1 for France, 1 for Sweden, 1 for Poland, and Julia Schmitz will be last to go. Lady Like, the individual rider from Belgium. Well, there the score, 30.8, very nearly breaking that 30 penalty mark barrier. 30.8 goes into 12th place. I should think he'd be really, what have you seen? What have you seen? Very spooky. Not wanting to go out of the arena. I think
a long way from the judges, but this is what we're riding, unfortunately.
I know.
Anyhow, just to fill you in, he's spinning round. He doesn't want to go out of the exit gate because he's seen something. And it just is, it's good for us all to remember that we are riding not a motorbike,
flight
but
animals.
Very, very much a living being.
Yeah, the crowd's very much enjoying the dressage, as do we. We hope you are, and if you've missed any of the action, don't forget you can go back and watch again any of the dressage today, tomorrow, the cross-country action on Saturday, and the show jumping on Sunday for the individual and team competition here, the 35th edition of the FEI Eventing European Championships in Avanches, Switzerland. We're nestled amongst the Swiss mountains. It's a beautiful day. We're due for weather to set fair, and it's going to be cracking competition. and you can go back and watch it on any of the... Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Slow
that
behind.
was so interesting.
Yeah, I
So-
spotted it.
Yeah, but you told me about it.
Yeah.
And then when I watched him strike off, those hind legs were slow
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
And now he's been able to open them
Yeah.
for the next flying
Yeah,
change
yeah.
because he did the extended canter.
And then a really good
Oh
change.
my goodness, I'm coming for a dressage lesson, Spencer. Brilliant.
But you can go back and watch on YouTube, any of the social networking platforms for FEI TV, powered by Clip My Horse. Well, the next to go, representing France as an individual, it is Luc Chateau with Troubadour Camfort. Andrew Benny stands there as he rings the bell. Our amazing arena helper takes out the board to allow him into the arena. This is his very first European Championships, Luc Chateau. And these two are about to enter for their test. Troubadour Camfort, a very, very nice horse. He's 38 years young, Luc, and he rides the 14-year-old Self Français by Adam de Bonneville. Troubadour Camfort for France. Former ride of Didier Denin. Also for France, Alexis Gomez as well rode this horse. And they've been slowly picking their way through their 4-star runs, finishing just outside the top 10 at Aradapin in France just a few weeks ago.
Interesting type of horse, Spencer. A lot of the French horses have been lighter, more Anglo-Arab horses. Even the Self Français have had a lot of Arab, I suspect, in them. And this is a little bit heavier horse, but still looks an athlete, looks light enough to gallop 4 miles. More like a New Zealand thoroughbred rather than an American thoroughbred, to put an analogy to it.
Interesting, yeah.
Lovely angle there, or you're going to tell me that's too much angle?
From here,
Yeah, it's
slightly
hard.
too much.
Yeah, but maybe not from the lengthways camera. And a nice entry into the half pass. A little bit stiff behind there as he crosses over.
6.5. I think that's because there was a little bit too much angle.
Oh, do you think I got that right?
No, in the shoulder in.
In the shoulder in.
I think you're absolutely right.
Got to remember to praise ourselves when we get it right, because you do, Spencer, but I'm not always.
Well, I think you do jolly well.
Well,
You've been in
very
Tokyo.
helpful.
You've
It's
been in
interesting
Tokyo.
to watch this. And here we go with our 2 reins again, the double bridle. A horse that looks a fraction lower in his wither than his hind end. I think you called it croup high, didn't you? And this could be another one of those. And it's just the way God makes them. And you, as a trainer and a rider, have to help them still transfer the weight towards their back end, even though their front end is lower than their back end. It's not a lot, it's only a very small
quite careful
amount.
here, yeah. I thought that was about to happen.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It's so difficult because the horses know that canter's coming, and he had to let him go early because he was off in a dribbly trot, so he just said, all right, let's canter early and be done with it. That looked a very good change. Half pass, it just doesn't really bend in the middle and cross his legs over. It's just a little bit solid in those sideways movements. Nice extension. Actually does sit down better on his hind legs there and allow the movement to come through. Let's see if that's made him have an even better change here. Happy with that?
Yeah, a little bit tight.
I was going to say, you would say a little bit lacking expression,
Yeah,
but better than explosion.
yes, exactly.
And sideways that way seems to look a little easier for him. They very often, like we are right-handed or left-handed, they very often have one way. Once somebody told me it was the way they were curled up in their mothers. They curled up to the right, then they were softer and suppler to the right when they grew up, which I love that expression. I'm sure it's not true, but I'm sticking with it. Very nice open underline of his neck, not a V, but a U.
Got 6s for that flying change.
Yeah.
And well, a 6 and a 6.5, and I think that was exactly what we'd seen.
It was accurate, but
Yeah.
not buoyant. Good.
Well, Luc Chateau for France, individual rider for France, Troubadour Camfo, coming home. And that test, a solid performance for him. First European Championships for Luc, and they will score mid-30s, 35, 36, maybe squeeze into the 34s. We won't have to wait too long. The score's very quick coming through to our screens. And we just have 2 left to go. 1 for Sweden and 1 for Poland. In fact, 3. We have the Belgian rider as well. 35.3 goes into 25th place. This, the marks 132.5, 133.5, 141.5 for Luc Chateau and Troubadour Camfo pour le France.
A happy Luc Chateau, I felt.
Yeah, a happy Luc and a happy horse at the end of the day, and I think this is, I think like you said, I think he's going to be a super horse to watch on the cross country. He looks like he's got a very good galloping stride on him, and lucky here, I think the teams have been very clever in who they put into the team and who they've left out of the team, because it is fairly flat. We think we're going to go out there and walk after the last horse and have a wander around and give you more of an idea at home when we come back tomorrow. But it's going to be a really interesting. We've got a very tightly packed leaderboard. We've got now 10 riders sub 30, 20.9 Nicola Wilson leads, and there's only 9.6 that separate the top 10, which is very, very slim indeed. And if we go to what has been ever incurring, the cross country coming down to not only the jumping but the time too, it'll be a very influential test. Mike Etherington-Smith, the course designer, I'm sure will have built a proper championship track, having built 5 stars, having built previous championship courses all around the world, not only in the northern hemisphere but in the southern hemisphere as well. Well, next to go it is Sophia Sjöberg. She rides for Sweden. Brejemolja von het Marenshof Z.
I was really looking forward to you seeing that name. I was awfully glad I didn't have to introduce him.
Well, Brejemolja von het Marenshof Z, a horse that she's been having some very good form on, riding as an individual. She's already come up through not only the juniors but young rider Europeans. This is her very first senior European Championships here in Avanches, and these two, having competed at Mill Street in Ireland in the 4-star short, finishing inside the top 10 in 8th place. They've stepped up and they've been competing Nations Cups, 4-star, stepped up to 4-star level at the back end of 2019. Sophia Sjöberg, 23 years of age, representing Sweden with the Zangerscheid sired by Bamako de Moose, 10 years old, Brejemolja von het Marenshof Z.
You torture yourself, Spencer.
Was that?
Saying that name twice.
I think I did it 3
So
times.
here we go, shoulder in, looking very polished. Nice, active. Again, another one attacking their test with a good amount of energy.
10-year-old mare.
Thank you. Doesn't look hurried, but just energetic. Uses very nice hind leg, very nice halt. It's a shame about those front legs, but the hind legs just sat down without jerking, and she's got very lovely hind leg movement. You'll watch her in a minute. Very active. And when I say active, I mean everything bends. The hock bends, the hip bends. And that's what you want in a horse that's going to jump. You don't want a hind leg that just takes little strides and doesn't bend everywhere. And it's much easier for them to sit down if they've got an athletic hind leg, and she has.
Yeah, she has. I always think of these things that, you know, when you're riding a horse like this, it's got a powerful back end. I've talked before about being able to control the amount of energy you create from the back end to support and lighten the front end to get that ease of movement. It's a little bit like if you can imagine when you're creating energy, when a whale comes up to the surface and releases the air, releases that
Plume.
that is coming out of the between the ears. You're creating all of that, and it's got to come somewhere. And with the horse, it's the same. You create the energy, you create the elasticity.
And what I'm seeing here, to interrupt you a little, is that you've got this terrific activity behind, and you've got a almost a size lighter in front, not as strong a front end to absorb the power that it's creating. A little bit cheeky there, and they can sometimes misinterpret and get the wrong leg, and you just try to ignore it because the communication system just broke down for a minute. And that I also saw, Spencer, was a stride late behind. But it is interesting when you see this horse profile on, and we will see it profile on in the extended canter, and I think you'll see what I mean, that you've got this activity power in the engine, and then the front end is just a whole degree lighter frame, lighter boned almost.
Partly because of possibly the mare's age, being 10 years old, she needs to get a little bit stronger in front to manage what's happening behind. Once she learns to manage and to much better that way. I mean, it wasn't on the button, it wasn't where it should have been, but it was clean.
Change,
once she learns, and I think this is why we've got the shaking of the head, because the hind end is doing all of this work, and the front end just doesn't know what to do with it.
Doesn't quite able to balance it, But you know, you think if you're in racing terms, 10 is an oldish horse, but in eventing terms, it still can be quite a young horse, 10. Muscularly, strength-wise, he'd take a very long time, especially the warmer-blooded horses. The thoroughbred will develop quicker. Rattling down the centre line, a little bit of a squealer, breaks to the halt, but pretty good.
Yeah, a lot to like with that mare. Again, thinking about where she is in her career, what she's done so far, the pluses and the minuses throughout the test, and of course there were some. And once she's learnt to deal with the balance, to deal with the power that I don't think necessarily knows she's got either at the moment. When she knows how to deal with it, to cope with it, and to utilise it in the way that probably Sophia Sjoberg has also got to learn to ride.
How to handle it.
Exactly. Then these two will be, because I think at the beginning of the test, she was right up there. And the mare, when she started the canter work, you know, again, was just getting quite exuberant, was getting quite keen to get on with the movements. And it was lovely. I mean, some super trot work, some really good angles in the shoulder in, some really good suppleness through the half passes and the way she moves through her body. She's got the ability, she's got the room in the middle of her body, in the rib cage, to bend and to soften and supple. But then when you're asking for the slightly more collected work, from the walk to the canter, from the canter work, the extension back to the more collected work, she just doesn't know what to do with it. The brain's going, can't cope, abort. And then Sophia's doing a really good job of just settling the mare down, back down the rein again and saying, look, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. 30.3 goes into 12th place, 140, 151.5, 147.5, and that puts her into 12th place. Breijemolja von Het Merenshoft Z. And Siri's now picked up on me saying that and said, sorry, could you say that again? No. I don't know why. And Siri is supposed to be on silent. Two left. One left. Two left. It is one for Poland and one for Belgium, and just making their way into the arena now is the Polish individual rider.
Shame we haven't got a Polish team, isn't it? We're used to having a Polish team, and sometimes they're a bit tight to field a couple of individuals, but they've been very strong over the years in an eventing presence. They haven't always done hugely successfully, but they've had a presence, and some of their horses are very able.
Yeah, they are, and it is a great shame. This is a rider she's competing in her very first European Championships. I think not able to send a team, but really good to send a new, younger group to the European Championships and get that senior championship experience. She's been on the youth program, she's ridden. There's nothing like when you make that big step up onto the big stage. And this is Małgorzata Korjajska with Can Valencia. Can Valencia is a horse that she's been slowly ebbing away at. They won a good 4-star long in Poland at Stregom back in June of this year. Very good 4-star, very competitive 4-star as well. Małgorzata Korjajska with Can Valencia, the Oldenburg 10-year-old mare. Another mare.
That centre line seems an awful long way when things aren't going perfectly, but actually it wasn't a bad entry, but it was quite strong and powerful, and there's a little bit of an on-edge mare here at the minute, I think. This lovely start to the test, this shoulder encircle half pass, does a lot to help a horse settle to your aids, settle to her job. But a very nice look about her.
It's a big moving mare, isn't she?
Big without being too big,
yeah.
I feel. Because if they're too big, sometimes they can get caught out on the cross country. So she's got that elevation without being too over extravagant. And that's looking like a rein back that might work better than many. Well done. Very often they're not quite getting their 5 though, are they?
No. Again, with this mare, she's just, she's quite a big mover, and looking a little bit weak, and that showed in the halt when she came into the halt before the rein back. Not quite square behind, front end fine, back end not conducive with the front end.
But this back end is working really well in the sideways. Certainly she's got the front to her to absorb her back end, hasn't she?
Definitely.
She's a good example to compare with the one we've just seen, where there was very little neck and shoulder. And I'd actually been thinking about going cross-country on the one we've just seen and thinking I think I'd fall off over the front end much more easily than I would fall off over the front end of this horse, because she's got a lovely shoulder. And if you can see where the saddle is, it's sat, the saddle pad makes it look like the saddle's sat on the end of her wither, but it isn't. It's sat well back. Lovely walk. Stretching very nicely, hind end moving, front end moving, roughly the same. A little bit of over track, and unfortunately a little bit of jog. Oh, so often happens. You have to be so clever how you get them to come back to a smaller walk. Basically, it's meant to be a collection, but she's just wants to get on with it, so quite rightly, Małgorzata allowed her to. So that was interesting, because that was early behind and late in front. Do you know, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that.
She sort of did a double hind leg.
I just thought it went behind and then went in front, but we might get to see it again. Oh, look at that, ripping along, good girl. 10 years old is no great age. Looks to be a very willing mare, sensitive for sure. I think, unfortunately Spencer wasn't watching, but I think that was a fraction late behind as opposed to being early behind. I do hope this isn't boring those of you that are watching, because I do find it rather fascinating how they use their legs in the change. So let's see how this trot transition, that looked really classy. And then across into the extended trot, which also looks really classy, but it's just losing a tiny bit of balance there as she asked a bit more. It's so tempting to ask a bit more because you'll get a better mark if you can get it, but she just wobbled imperceptibly for a stride, and a very nice centre line. Yeah. Extended trot 6.576, so it could have been so good, and by trying to get an 8 and a 9 you ended up getting less than you might have done if you hadn't asked for the extra. Such a decision, you have to make it on the spur of the moment when things are feeling good, ask a bit more, and oop, the balance didn't quite allow me to do it. Lovely stretch now. You often look at them in their extended walk as they leave the arena, which is basically a free walk on a long rein. And you think if only they'd done that on their extended walk, what a mark they would have got.
Małgorzata Gorycka and Can Valentia. The Brits having a bit of a feast by the look of things. Well, the score just coming in then for Małgorzata Gorycka, 36.1 goes into 28th place, 129.0, 134.5 and 139.0 from our judge at M. And that goes into 28th place for the Polish individual rider. I thought this, for a 10-year-old mare, showed a lot of potential. If you're looking for a horse, let's go back and see this horse in 12 months, 24 months' time. In 12 months' time, I think she'll even be stronger than she is now. And
a lovely type, wouldn't you say?
She
I'd be interested to know the actual breeding. I think we were told it was Holsteiner, but I'd be interested to know what's behind that. Look at that. Let's go galloping. And doesn't she sit beautifully, Małgorzata?
Yeah, but that was the late behind change that you spotted earlier. Don't need me soon.
I want to see the one that was late in front, which is novel for me as a non-dressage watcher.
Well, the last to go on the first day of dressage for the FEI Eventing European Championships in Avanches 2021 will be for Belgium, and the Belgian individual Julia Schmitz. And Ladylike, here she comes, her very first European Championships. And Ladylike, as you might have guessed, another mare, 12 years old.
This is extraordinary, isn't it?
And these two coming off the back of a run in Arville, and also Jardy and Stregon, 4 stars.
Now a little count up my friend in Australia has done. There's a total of 17 mares from 66 competitors. It feels like many more. I wonder if we won't get many tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm amazed by that, because it seems like every other horse,
really
if not
does.
every
really
horse
does.
has been a mare, which is great. I love to see the mares out there, and this is a beautiful, beautiful horse. And these two, I know, are fully capable of a dressage in the 20s. And watching them in Arville, I also watched them in Rensvoorde in the Netherlands not long ago either. And if they can just keep themselves together, they've got the potential to produce a good test. She also has, and they're very clever, these riders. We watched earlier, Björn Danner, he stayed behind the judge at sea, and you can see Anthony Benny there just looking, where are they, where are they?
Yes.
He wants to see them before he rings the bell. So they stay behind the judge, and then he sees them, then he rings the bell.
And they stay behind the judge so the judge can't preconceive too much of an idea of how they're going.
Because she can get quite hot in the canter work. So that was interesting to watch Julia out there doing circles and making this mare just settle down. She's a beautiful looking mare. She's a stunning type. And she's about to come down. The last of the day, another circle. She's taking up all of her time. She's looked at the clock. She knows she's got 20 seconds. And she has got to get into the arena before the 20 seconds are up. She's very cool. She's looking over her right shoulder.
I'm sure she will.
Yeah, she's just moved up the canter. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
That was actually taking the timing to a little bit more than my nerve could bear. So
Julia Schmitz, 28 years old, riding the 12-year-old by Levisto's big boy, Ladylike. The dam sire, Noble Tianza. This is
She just corrected that halt. Did you see that?
Yeah.
She halted a little bit not square, and she just urged her to move one leg on to try and square the halt up, which is an educational thing. You might as well do it in the arena as out. One day you want a square halt like we saw Piggy French produce. I missed the age, Spencer. Do we have an age?
Yeah, I did. She is
Nice half
12 years old.
Yeah, so there still could be plenty to come. She's a lovely supple mare. Those sideways movements were very nice, and a really nice golly. That's probably the best we've seen.
Yeah.
Square and soft into it, and a very, very nice rein back. As I said, the hardest, not just to do, but quite hard to judge. Lovely clear steps in her, just like in her rein back actually, in her shoulder in. And so far she's not getting hot under the collar. She's a little bit carrying her head inside the vertical, which ideally she'd just be a little bit more carrying her head out. But she's working well. You sort of don't want to interfere, do you? Because she's settled, but she is just a little bit low in her head and the top end of her neck.
I just hope, yeah, I hope she just keeps it together in the canter work.
That's where you said she can split off, yeah. She looked good outside.
Yeah, she did. It was interesting seeing her doing all of
the work behind.
Added circles.
Out of sight, the magic circle behind the judges. Right, and there's a lovely walk. And that looks to me to be a nice, easy walk. There's breathing in between each stride here. One or two of them have been a little quick. And lovely hind legs moving up.
Just again, watching her bring the hand back.
Yes, let's see what happens now.
It's very interesting. I love seeing she has shortened the reins up a little bit.
She's there, and hopefully the horse doesn't notice. The soft bit in her mouth, a white bit, not metal. She's riding on quite a long rein now.
Calm.
A little bit early in front, wasn't it?
Yeah, 8 behind a stride. 4s for the change. And that's what can upset her, are the flying changes. And Julia has learnt, only in a very short space of time, of how to ride the mare, and you spotted that she rode her on a long rein, slightly longer in the neck, because if you ride her in the frame that she likes to go in, that's when she can get even tenser, or more tense, not tenser, more tense. See what happens in this one. She's got on the long rein again, keeping the hand nice and low. And again,
a little bit late behind, but let's hope that doesn't bounce her into the stratosphere. And underneath her, she'll probably be feeling that little bit of fizz, but straight away she can pop her into half pass, which has quite a calming effect on some horses, to go sideways rather than straight. And a very good transition. She's holding herself a little bit against Julia and hopping a bit behind there, which she'll get marked down for. The back legs must come through evenly like the front, and they'll often do that if they're a little tense. We call it bridle lame. And another very good halt, even though one leg had to step back a couple of inches to balance. So it was a really good effort on a horse that has a reputation to be quite difficult and hot in canter.
But you could see exactly what I meant in the canter work. She was very tactful, very tenacious as well in her riding. Because
that's an interesting juxtaposition of words, tactful and tenacious. If we could all ride tactfully and tenaciously, we'd probably be really good.
But what she's learned to do is to not back off the mare, because she used to back off her.
Did she?
And then the mare almost said, gotcha. And now she's actually learning in the arena to ride her in a different way.
Give her the security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they do look for it. And unfortunately, sometimes when those horses think that they've got you, then they can be quite cunning and very clever. And
they're not really trying to get you. They're just losing their sort of savoir-faire, aren't they? They're losing their leg at each corner feeling of balance, and it appears like they're trying to get us, but I really, how's that? Well, it's looking good.
Yeah, 137.5, 147.5, 144.5 puts her onto 31.8 and into 19th place. Some really highlights, I mean, some really beautiful work, and you can see she's a very pretty mare, beautifully put together, and a great model And
isn't she?
She'd be a model if she was
Yes,
in
yes.
human
Yes,
form.
you can see her in the miniskirt.
Absolutely, she's a very pretty mare with a very quick brain. Late behind in both the changes, they were very costly.
Now you've told me her history, how wonderful were the changes,
Yeah,
really, just
yeah.
because they're technically not quite there.
Yeah.
She didn't get upset by them. She proceeded to finish her canter work really, really well.
Well, day one of dressage is now complete, and what a day we've had. The crowds have been pouring in. We're expecting full capacity come tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday, and we hope that you can join us for all of that action as it unfolds. Great Britain lead overnight on 44.2, a convincing lead over the French team on 56.0. Germany third, 57.1. They are the defending champions from Le Moulin in 2019. Italy, good performances from the Italians, 59.8, sit in fourth, with the Netherlands in fifth. Austria sixth on a score of 61.9. Belgium in seventh. Ireland, two very good performances again, 64.6 in seventh. Ireland eighth. Russia in ninth. Sweden, Spain and Switzerland 10, 11 and 12. And finally in 13th place, the final team. Well, we don't get to see them, but the individuals, there are what matters as well. Ingrid Klimke comes tomorrow with SAP Hale Bob, the defending champion. She's won 2 titles in Stregom and in Le Moulin. Can she make it a hat-trick here? Nicola Wilson, though, leads with JL Dublin for Great Britain on 20.9. Piggy March, Brookfield Innocent for Great Britain second, 23.3. That's why the Brits are out in front. Andreas Dibowski and FRH Corrida in third for Germany, 25.6. Christoph Wahler, individual rider, Karjatan S, 26.0 in fourth. Robert Mandel, what a test from him. Sacré-Cœur for Austria, 26.3 in fifth. Gwendolen Fer for France, Romantic Love, 26.5 in sixth. Izzy Taylor, eighth. Jean-Louis Bigot, one of the early ones to go for France in ninth. Pietro Sande for Italy in 11th. Sophia Sjöberg, where we saw her. Brimoja, von Het Marinshoff, Z. Sweden sits in 12th place on 30.3. As we turn the page, and a lot of riders that have done some really solid tests. Lara Delili Kakamaya, Ducati Daville for Belgium, 30.8, alongside the Spanish rider on the same score, an equal 13th place. Antonio Cayuda Caro, Duke HSM in equal 13th, with Ireland's Joseph Murphy, Caesar Z. Cackle Daniels, Lev Elias Jewel in 16th. Marco Capai with Uta for Italy down in 19th. Julia Smits just goes into equal 19th place for Belgium, alongside Albert Kalikov and Argelis Tokyo on 31.8. Geordie Vilken first to go, Barry Spirit for the Netherlands down there in 23rd. Sam Watson for Ireland in 24th place. Further down, Marlin Josefsson, Golden Midnight, 34.1. Katrin Kodemhas-Ratti, Oklahoma for Austria in 28th. And then Bjart Danner, a tough ride for him with London Blue. He got the job done, but it wasn't the smoothest of rides. 56.9 in last position overnight. We are back tomorrow with more dressage, and we have some of the best of the best. We have the defending champion, who will be one of the last to go at 2:45. Ingrid Klimke and SAP Hale Bob, with the remaining 2 riders in the team. It's going to be all to play for, but some brilliant dressage that we have seen here today. It is going to be Great Britain that lead individually. Nicola Wilson, JL Dublin, 20.9, just ahead of her compatriot Piggy March and Brookfield Innocent on 23.3. Great Britain lead the team, 44.2. A big margin between Great Britain and France on 56.0. We hope that you've enjoyed all of the action. If you've missed anything, then do go to the social networking sites on YouTube, Facebook, and watch back some brilliant dressage. We're back tomorrow, 10 o'clock, the first horse down the centre line. We'll be back on air shortly before then, myself and Lucinda Green. And the first to go, Dirk Schrader for Germany, as the team riders get back underway. Individual riders start the day. The first team rider, Sanne de Jong for the Netherlands, Enjoy, will be at 10:22. Make sure you set your alarms. Join us for more action tomorrow from Lucinda Green and myself, Spencer Sturmey, and the whole team from FEI TV, powered by Kit My Horse, it's goodbye from day one. We'll see you tomorrow.